Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome back to another episode of a game of throws in World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles. This may be the best, and when I say best I of course mean the worst, throw that I have seen this year, and it's up against some fairly stiff competition. We're 10 months into 2024, and you've been treated to some fairly epic throws over the last 10 months. I feel confident in saying that they all pale into insignificance compared to what you're about to see today. Today's battle is my favourite kind of throw. It's the throw that you just do not see coming. You think you do, and you're wrong. And then you think you do again, and you're still wrong. And it's the kind of throw that just keeps you guessing. And it was sent in courtesy of Ben Bircham here, in HMS Lightning, British Tier 8 destroyer. Ben also has impeccable taste in ship commanders. He's actually running me as the captain of his Lightning. Jolly good show, that man. So, HMS Lightning, British Tier 8 destroyer. It's fine. It's a perfectly solid ship. There's nothing particularly outstanding about it. Well, other than its stealth. I mean, 5.5 kilometers is very, very good. Everything else about the ship is alright. You know, there's nothing bad about HMS Lightning. It's a good, solid, all-round Tier 8 destroyer. 6 guns, a reasonable rate of fire, good turret rotation speed. Oh, and all of the gun turrets are capable of a full 360 degrees of rotation, which is, I mean, it's nice to have. It's not particularly outstanding on a destroyer, since the turrets tend to rotate pretty quickly anyway. Oh, you can see that Ben has the radio location skill, which is pointing straight ahead towards the nearest enemy. And it's lurking around the other side of the island, which means it isn't the Ipiranga up ahead, and it's not the Dallas over there. So that probably means one enemy destroyer right on the other side of that island. Which means it's very likely that he's about to run into him. This is a standard battle, by the way. There are no cap circles. Well, other than the 2 bases. But, you know, it's not domination. Yep, sure enough, enemy destroyer. It's the Gator. Ben gets the first shots out. The Gator appears to be reluctant to return fire. He's probably going to try to smoke up and just disengage, which seems like the wise thing to do. And that's something that Ben is going to do as well, because both destroyers are within secondary gun battery range of an Ipiranga. Now pay attention to that radio location indicator as Ben is launching his torpedoes behind the smokescreen, because he's judging that the Gator is going to try to pull a U-turn and disengage. But the radio location marker is pointing. There, you see, it just flipped. It's now pointing towards the Ipiranga, which means all of those torpedoes are going to miss because the Gator did not pull the U-turn as inspected, and instead he's trying to flank around to the right, simply using this smokescreen to get into cover behind that other island over there on the right side. The team have just suffered their first 2 casualties, by the way, which, yes, this does mean that the scores are flipped. I know, big surprise, World of Warships replay. Ben's team are at 269 points, the enemy team are at 429. Meanwhile, Ben putting those smokescreens to good use. Set a fire on board the Ipiranga. It was a single fire, and the enemy Ipiranga has used the damage control, but he's ducking in behind the island over there, so there's no danger of him succumbing to a second or third fire. Now, the radio location skill, yep, it's pointing over there. That's where the Gator is. He's going to try, I mean, he's used his torpedoes already, but German destroyer, fast reload on the torpedoes. Yep, he's going for the friendly Ipiranga. He has his hydro running. British destroyer hydro, extremely long duration, but relatively short range, only something like 3 kilometers, but it's close enough to be able to warn the friendly Ipiranga, whose secondaries are absolutely hammering that Gator. But yeah, the hydro is absolutely good enough to warn the friendly Ipiranga of any torpedoes that, let's face it, he's not getting any torpedoes away. Slaughtered by the friendly Ipiranga's secondaries. That's what happens to destroyers who are dumb enough to get caught within secondary gun battery range of an Ipiranga. Speaking of Ipirangas, check this out. So he knows that he no longer has destroyer cover. Watch this. He's reversing out from behind an island. Now Ben correctly judges that he's only reversing out to get some shots off. Oh, look at that. That was a really good guess as to where Ben was. But Ben correctly guessed that the Ipiranga had only reversed out to get some shots off and then was going to go full steam ahead. So he launched his torpedoes in front of the reversing Ipiranga. The thing is, that ship has such unrealistic... All of the Pan-American battleships are like that, by the way. Watch the mini-map. Watch when that guy pops up again and gets detected. He's already going to be on the other side of the island. There it is. You see that? None of those torpedoes had a chance of catching him. Even fired ahead of him when he was going full astern. All of these Pan-American battleships have these kind of handling characteristics. They're 40 to 60,000 ton battleships that have the handling characteristics of British light cruisers. They're absurdly good. And in the hands of somebody who knows what they're actually doing, they're incredibly dangerous. Even the Tier 8 Ipiranga, which is only on with 14-inch guns and doesn't have, as I incorrectly stated in previous videos, does not have the 9.2-inch secondaries that the Tier 9 Los Andes and the Tier 10 Libertad have. The team have just lost a fourth ship. They're now 250 points behind. Now, the Ipiranga is not dumb enough to try to take on a destroyer unless he absolutely has to. Certainly not without his own destroyer escort, which he no longer has after the sinking of the enemy Gator, who is still the only casualty on the enemy team. Or at least he was until the friendly Massachusetts managed to sink the enemy North Carolina. Now, with the Ipiranga keeping a healthy distance due to his own lack of destroyer escort, this does mean that Ben now has a free run at the enemy carrier. And if he can sink the enemy carrier, and he will need to actually sink the enemy carrier, just chasing him out of the base won't be good enough. You can do that with a cruiser, a battleship, or another enemy destroyer, but chasing a carrier out of the base, well, he still has aircraft, and he can still scout you and reset you and destroy you while you're lurking around inside his base. So he is going to need to sink the enemy carrier. But if he can do that, he can then have a stab at flipping the enemy base. Because remember, this is a standard battle. It's not domination. It plays out more like a World of Tanks standard battle, where there are two ways of winning. Either destroy everybody on the enemy team, or capture their base. Oh, the radio location skill just flipped. It's pointing to the other side of the island. I mean, you can see where the enemy carrier is by its combat air patrol, but it's just been confirmed by the radio location skill, which also lets him know that the carrier is now the closest enemy vessel to his location. The thing is, unlike a World of Tanks standard battle, in a World of Warships standard battle, you don't actually need to capture the enemy base in order to cause the enemy team severe problems. Yep, there's the carrier. Just being in the enemy base prevents the enemy team from accumulating any further points. If you've been paying attention to the scores, you will have noticed that in a standard battle, both teams accumulate 2 points every couple of seconds for as long as their base remains uncontested. Notice the enemy Ipiranga, by the way, which is why Ben has taken an extremely scenic route around. He doesn't want to get spotted by the enemy Vesa or its aircraft, and he definitely needs to keep his distance from the Ipiranga. Those torpedoes are looking good, though. And, yep, he's nailed him. Before he went down, though, the enemy carrier did manage to launch a full squadron of strike aircraft. Which means that even though he's dead, he can cause Ben significant problems, since it should be pretty clear to everybody that the next thing he's going to do is slip into that cap circle. And even if the carrier player doesn't attack Ben with the strike aircraft, all he has to do is spot him, because the Ipiranga player knows exactly where Ben is going and he's steaming full speed ahead after him. He is the closest enemy. RPF, I keep calling it RPF. It used to be called radio position finding, now it's just direction find. I don't know, whatever. It's pointing straight at the Ipiranga. That guy absolutely knows what Ben is doing. The enemy carrier player, however, instead of doing anything useful, decides to waste his aircraft by attacking the friendly Massachusetts instead, which probably has the strongest air defences of everything remaining on Ben's team, and is all the way down at the other end of the map. Which is a long-winded way of saying the enemy carrier may have just thrown the match. I mean, he's only a tier 6 carrier, and the Lightning is a tier 8 destroyer, but it's a tier 8 destroyer with pretty bad AAA, which means he could easily have kept Ben spotted. Not long enough for the Ipiranga to catch him. I mean, the Ipiranga's not a slow battleship, and the Lightning isn't a particularly fast destroyer, but it's still faster than an Ipiranga, but he would not have been able to lurk around inside this cap circle for as long as he does. Alright, he's in there. Now, the enemy team are no longer getting points from anything other than kills, which means they are now 1 point ahead. The Ipiranga's taking a couple of blind shots because, I mean, he knows he's spotted anyway. What else is he going to do? And Ben's team are now 2 points ahead. The enemy team are stuck on 383 points. Ben's team continue to accumulate 2 points every couple of seconds because nobody's in their cap. Check out the Ipiranga's blind fire there. He's good. Also notice that he's not just charging blindly into the cap circle in pursuit of Ben because torpedoes. Ipiranga doesn't get hydro. See what he's doing? Yep. He's using the islands to get as close to Ben as possible so that hopefully when he spots him, he's inside secondary gun battery range, and you can bet he's switching to high explosive ammunition. Also, Ben's team just got another kill, so they're now 100 points ahead. And remember, Ben doesn't need to actually take this cap circle. I mean, it'd be nice if he could, because that would be one way of winning. He just has to stay in here for as long as possible to keep the enemy team from accumulating any further points, and allowing his team to stretch that points lead. But Ben does know that that Ipiranga is sneaking up on him, and with, well, a minute and a half to go, there's no way he's realistically going to be allowed to take this cap circle. So he's putting as much distance between himself and that radio. There he is. Yep, here he comes. That was a smart move. It allowed him to get to within 9 kilometers before he got spotted again, and the enemy team have just suffered another casualty. Ben's team are now 200 points ahead. Notice there in chat, the enemy Chapayev player has just said, GG, our CV let you win. Yep, he's not wrong. I mean, the Ipiranga's going to do what he can, and he's probably not going to be sailing in a straight line. Which means that Ben is going to have to try to hedge his bets with a wide torpedo spread there, trying to cover all of the angles. Now, the Ipiranga is inside the base. This does not mean that the enemy team start accumulating points, though. He's going to have to either kill Ben or chase him out. But Ben is still determined to stay in here as long as he possibly can to maximise his value to the team. And you can see the point at which the Ipiranga spots the torpedoes. The enemy team have just suffered another casualty. They now only have one destroyer and that Ipiranga left. Unfortunately for Ben, as he smokes up, the Ipiranga, as we've already noted, these new Pan American battleships are ridiculously manoeuvrable, and he was easily able to dodge those torpedoes. Ben's team are now 300 points ahead. He's not going to win by capping, though. Here's the point where Ben suffers from a sudden and fatal rush of shit to the brain. I mean, I can see what he's trying to do here. He wants to torpedo the Ipiranga, and his torpedoes do only have 30 seconds left to come off cooldown, but he's in a British destroyer. British destroyer smoke doesn't last very long. And you do not want to get spotted in front of a ship armed with 10 14-inch guns and devastating secondaries with your torpedoes on cooldown. And of course that is exactly what happens. Ben realises he's screwed up. He tries to go for the ram, which wouldn't have sunk the Ipiranga anyway. But that's what happens when you're in a destroyer and you end up getting caught at that kind of range in front of an Ipiranga, a ship that is armed with 10 14-inch guns, all of which had high explosive loaded, backed up by a fearsome array of secondaries. To his credit, Ben's there in chat, you had one person on your team paying attention. Yes, the Ipiranga. The only person on the enemy team who paid the slightest bit of attention to the fact that their base was being capped. So, yeah, sudden and fatal rush of shit to the brain on Ben's behalf there. He thought he could get the Ipiranga with his torpedoes before getting spotted, and he was wrong. However, it's not a huge loss. I mean, there's still only 2 enemies left, although the enemy destroyer, the Fushan, has managed to torpedo and sink their own carrier. However, he's not surviving that. Backed up against the map border, spotted with 1.5, well, with no health left. The Massachusetts gets him with the main gun batteries. If it hadn't done it with the main gun batteries, it would have slaughtered him with the secondaries. So, just the Ipiranga left. He's 250 points behind, outnumbered 3-1. He's going up against a Colorado on 40,000 health. A Massachusetts, who doesn't have a huge amount of health, but, you know, it's a Massachusetts. And a Dallas. Now, a lot of players under these circumstances would just run away, run down the clock, because you're going to lose anyway. Or you could go down fighting. Gain a bit more credits and experience, get a bit more damage done, because you're going to lose anyway. Fortunately for everyone concerned, otherwise this would have been an extremely dull final 4 minutes of the battle, the Ipiranga is the second type of player. He's going down fighting. And again, to their credit, Ben's team acknowledges much in chat. Which probably means this is taking place on the North American server, because they're pretty cool in chat. I've tended to notice this when watching all kinds of World of Warships replays. The thing is, the Ipiranga has no intention of going down fighting. Well, I should qualify that statement. He has no intention of going down. He absolutely intends to fight. That was a 40,000 hit point Colorado a couple of seconds ago. Ben, still observing the battle there in chat with, I gave him a +1 because he seems to be able to think and breathe at the same time. We've heard that expression before somewhere, haven't we? And yes, that Ipiranga player is capable of thinking and breathing at the same time. I mean, we've already seen proof of this. He was the only person on the entire enemy team who took the threat that Ben posed to their base seriously. And now he's actually winning a fight against the Colorado. Well, he's winning the fight against the Colorado. He's actually sunk the Colorado. Remember, that Colorado had 40,000 health not that long ago. And now he's taken the fight to the Massachusetts. I don't know what the Dallas is doing, but it looks like a whole bunch of nothing. I mean, the Massachusetts should be able to take you, actually, maybe not. Don't forget, the Ipiranga gets a funny button, score main battery hits, or potential damage taken, and it charges the funny button up. And when it's active, it supercharges, the secondaries. He's killed the Massachusetts. And Massachusetts just got killed, oh, the irony, by secondaries. Ben's there in chat, well, shit. Am I watching a Game of Thrones? The Massachusetts player is backing him. Did we just throw? Yes, Ben, you are watching a Game of Thrones. I have no idea what the Dallas is doing. He's inside the Ipiranga's secondary range, so he's absolutely in range to shoot back, but he's not shooting back, and even worse, he's giving flat broadside to a battleship armed with 10 14-inch guns, which of course, Eclipse passing, the Ipiranga captain is only too happy to take advantage of. It looked like the Dallas was AFK. It looked like he thought, well, there's no way we're possibly going to lose this, so I'll go and make a cup of tea. Was that a throw, though? I mean, it's in an episode of A Game of Thrones, so technically I suppose it is, but was it really a throw? Or was it Eclipse passing in the enemy Ipiranga, just pulling off an absolutely colossal carry? I mean, the enemy carrier absolutely tried to throw the match. Ben, not entirely guilt-free on that count himself, severely underestimating just exactly how quickly his torpedoes were going to come off cooldown, and overestimating how long his smokescreen was going to last. I don't think you could really accuse the Colorado and the Massachusetts of throwing. They didn't really do anything wrong. I mean, the Dallas going AFK at the end, yeah, absolutely. But the Colorado and the Massachusetts? I mean, they thought they had the game in the bag. I thought they had the game in the bag. Nobody was prepared for the Ipiranga going full-on beast mode, though. So was that actually a throw? Or was it just Eclipse passing and the Ipiranga putting his back out and carrying his team kicking and screaming over the finishing line in the dying seconds of that match? You be the judge. Certainly something for you to all discuss in the comments, but massive congratulations to Eclipse passing and the Ipiranga. And, well done to Ben, who, despite his screw-up, still sent the replay in. And, let's be fair here. In front of a player like that, Ipiranga captain, any screw-ups are fatal. So, yeah, throw or carry, or both. You guys decide. Certainly did not see that ending coming. And I hope you all enjoyed it, because that's it for today. As always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.